before the start of the main slate of tonight's MLB action, as it is now a 12-game slate, and we are now here to break this one down for you. Of course, start lining up those questions right now in the chat. We will get to you. Jeff, man, appreciate time. Of course, it was supposed to be a 13-game slate, but that's not going to take place anymore as the Cardinals, once again, got another game postponed.
Yeah, Cardinals, Cubs, obviously off the slate. I know there's an article or two up on Awesemo was talking up the Cardinals a little bit. They were definitely interesting for me too, but that one's off. So at the same time, it's a massive slate. So one game scratching here, not that big a deal for DFS. Still lots of interesting ways to get exposure to lots of big bats and stuff like that. Yeah, the Cardinals. I memean, Goldschmidt. Those guys, they were kind of looking interesting. I mean, John Lester, obviously, southpaw, had been giving up a pretty bad home run rate over the last little bit, so that was kind of getting me interested there. But again, I mean, I probably shouldn't be talking about it because we're just wasting our time. So.
As one Cardinals player did test positive. Paul Goldschmidt was somebody that I was definitely looking at for this slate here. But I found this little stat from ESPN stats that they put out on Twitter. So if this entire series is postponed, the Cardinals are going to have to play 55 games in a 45-day span to complete 60 games. The last team to do this, the 1975 Twins.
Yeah, I mean, sounds fairly impossible to me, but who knows, what they're going to come up with this point MLB. I mean, they're going to have to do some fancy scheduling or just, stretch things out a little bit, which is probably what's going to happen. So either way, it's turning into an interesting situation. I think a lot of us probably saw this coming at some point, and hopefully the teams can tighten up. We can get this season in. I guess it's been a little bit better, a little bit more positivity in that regards, but it's too bad we got another situation brewing here.
It seems like it's a daily article just on MLB.com of what is the schedule going to be a week from now with all these changes. But like you mentioned, still 12-game slate, plenty of options out there to choose from. Of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft, so you definitely want to check them out. Also, got some great promos going over at Awesemo.com. We'll tell you about those here as we do go on. But kicking off the slate, we got the Tigers and the Pirates.
Yeah, Tigers and the Pirates. I mean, 8.5 run total right now. I mean, we got Cole versus Boyd. I think from a pitching perspective, Boyd is a dude I'm pretty interested in. I mean, you can obviously pay up for some pitching on this slate as well, but he doesn't have the greatest K rate or anything, but it's a pretty good buy low spot as well. I mean, going up against Pittsburgh, obviously, it's one of the best pitching ballparks in the league. I mean, for righty hitters. It's a pretty terrible spot, to be honest. I mean, the Pittsburgh, obviously, you look at their stats, it's just not really a good place to hit. And I mean, we're talking about two teams here in Detroit and Pittsburgh, right? So I think Matt Boyd just kicking things off for me is really the main spot of interest. I mean, Chad Cole on the other side probably could be brought up as well. He's cheap, but I mean, I'm not sure how deep he's going to pitch, right? And again, we're still in this spot where you're just limiting your upside. So, I mean, right off the bat, I mean, Boyd is definitely one of the pitchers I've got some interest in. And I was thinking he was going to be a little bit popular on the slate, Jason, but I'm not so sure anymore. I mean, just going to the, some of the stats on Awesemo and projections, he's not really up there unless I'm missing something. I might have missed him, but I don't think he's actually going to be that chalky or anything. So.
I know when I was doing the strategy show earlier today, Terry was, mentioning about, CJ Cron was the name he had thrown out there in terms of the Tigers. Over on the Pirates side, the one name that he threw out there. I mean, obviously everyone's going to talk about Josh Bell. I think he's always going to be talked about when we're talking to Pirates. But he also talked about Kevin Newman, especially if he was batting up high in the order, which he is second in the order today.
Yeah, there is, again, if you want to get a little bit of exposure here, you can, just because there's cheapness, right? And to fit in guys like the Dodgers later and stuff like that, or some of the big stacks, and you still need some value plays. So Newman was a guy I had written down as well. Reynolds, I don't think it's a spot I want to pay up for Bell. Obviously, if you're looking for a really low end stack, you can definitely go there. Detroit side of the ball, the only guy I have written down here is Scope. Again, you just at 3K, you're just looking for a bomb. I think that's pretty doable. Obviously, he's got a best ISO on the team there. So I think Detroit is at least viable there's a couple of hitters that they're so cheap. You can target for that purposes. But this isn't a game I'm looking to get that much exposure to. Again, the main person I'm interested in is Matt Boyd. I mean, I like the price. I think it's a really good ballpark, obviously. So, and on this pitching slate, you might not need like a whole ton. So, yeah, I agree with the Newman call. I agree. I think Reynolds there too. But overall, it might be just a spot where you just grab like a value hitter, and that's it. So.
Yeah, looking at our top pitcher tool, we've got Boyd at number 5 currently.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously, whether you want to put him in that slot or not. Of course, if you do have any questions about these games, just fire those up in the chat. I'll make sure to go in there. One person, commenting, CJ Crone cheap.
Yeah, cheap again, and I think that's the name of the game. If you're even looking at this one, and Crone is definitely like another player you can throw in, but. Again, I mean, Bell obviously the best hitter, but I don't want to spend all my capital here. Bad ballpark. It's not even really that good a matchup. So I think here this is a game where Cole. I mean, maybe I dismissed Cole a little bit too deeply. It's just, I think there's probably a few. I mean, we'll get to the chalky pitchers in a sec. The guy who's 5K that everyone's going to play, but Cole is probably someone I can just be good without. Again, Detroit almost interests me more from a value perspective because they have the power, right? With like Scope and even Miggy, they're so cheap. You just get a bomb and you're set. So again, not really a place I'm looking to stack at all. It's not a hitter's ballpark or anything like that. It's a better situation for the pitchers. And if I'm going here, it's more just like dipping down into one kind of value play, which there are a couple options. So.
Well, we can move on to the next game with the Braves and the Phillies. I know there were some people in the comment section before we got started talking about what the weather is like in Philadelphia. Vince Velasquez going up for the Phillies, Kyle Wright for the Braves. This was I know in doing the Early Bird podcast last night, and then talking about this game on the Strategy Show earlier today. You look at obviously the Braves have as of last night, they had the most strikeouts in the league. But you look at a guy like a Freddie Freeman in the spot, some of those left-handed bats. Nick Markakis now back. He got the home run way. I mean, what's kind of your assessment of this game?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this one's definitely a little bit more interesting. I mean, I think if I'm really asking like who's in the best spot here, it's probably the lefties for the Phillies going up against Kyle Wright. I mean, a player who like a decent strikeout rate in the minors and stuff like that. But, I mean, the Phillies are a tough lineup. Like I'm not really sure how deep he's going to pitch or anything either. So I feel like, he might be able to get out some of these righties for the Phillies, but this should be a monster spot for Bryce Harper. I mean, a player I don't really mind paying up for tonight if you can get him in there. You got Didi down there batting 5th as well. You could go with like a little mini double left-handed stack. I would just go with the 3-man there with Real Moto as well. JT at the catcher spot. Obviously, I mean, paying up for catcher, there are better value options. But again, if you're going to stack this, I think it's definitely a viable spot for it. So. Didi definitely good value there for the Phillies. I mean, it's expensive obviously to get exposure here, but I think it's a better spot for the hitters overall. So I don't mind paying up for that. And then on the other side, going up against Velasquez. I mean, Velasquez is a pitcher who's been around for a bit. He's kind of interesting. I mean, he always brings that good K rate. And he always kind of tantalizes you with like a good game here or there. But realistically, it's a pretty good matchup for Freddie Freeman. I mean, he's easily the top bat here, but there are a couple other lefties. I mean, Markakis and Markakis. I just want to make sure these guys are in the lineup because
Markakis is batting 6.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, I was looking at the Phillies lineup. I was like, where's Markakis? There he is. Markakis 6, and my other dude isn't in there, but. You could go Swanson, you could go up, but there's not a ton of left-handed options, obviously. So I definitely like Markakis, though. It's kind of a shame he's not batting a little bit higher. That would have been nice, if they put him 50, then he could have done a double thing. But I think just dipping into Markakis or just using Freeman on his own. I mean, this is another spot. Like, you can definitely use, pay up for Acuna, Freeman, Azuna, as well. But, it's a pretty big slate. I'm probably just going with Freeman here if I'm doing it. And I'll be honest, I have a little bit of interest in Vince Velasquez. I mean, you're just targeting upside 6.9K, still a good K rate. I mean, it's a really risky spot, and I'm just talking about GPPs here, but he can bring it, and he's a pitcher who he just won't look good, and then he'll just rack up 20 points or something. So not a whole lot of interest there. I'm still much more interested in the hitting side, but I think this game it's good. It's just you got to pay up here, so you got to be you're committing to this game. If you really believe in it, then you got to commit a lot of salary because there's not a ton of good values here that you're going to save money with.
When I was looking for some updates on the weather right before the show, I came across this reporter who reports on the Phillies minor leaguers, but he brought this stat up about Vince Velasquez against the Braves in his career. 12 games, a 1-6 record, 5.20 ERA. When you look at Encanarte, Freeman, Markakis, Swanson, Albies, Acuna, they've combined when they're facing Vince Velasquez 43 for 116, a 371 average.
Yeah, somewhere in my brain, I knew that Velasquez against the Braves was he's just horrible against them. So that's a good stat. You're right. He has been smushed by Atlanta over his career. So I mean, again, I'm not maybe I'll just talk down Vinny Velasquez a little bit more. He wasn't one of my top pitchers options. I'm just saying, you can mix him in as in a GP pool. Definitely a little bit more interested in him than Wright. I mean, I don't think Wright is going to get stretched or anything here. But realistically, this is a game where you're either ignoring it, I think, or you're just paying up for a stack. And again, you have to stack. I mean, you can stack 1 through 5 for the Braves. I think that's probably more viable. I think if you're going with Philly, again, I really like that Didi through Harper stack. Mm-hmm. Just a 3-man, more of a mini stack. So there's a little bit more value on the Philly side. And again, looking at Awesemo, I mean, you can go over to the site, obviously, and check out some stuff. I mean, there's a good article there on the Brave stack actually against Velasquez. Again, I think this was, this is EMAC. Eric McPherson wrote this up. So he liked the Braves tonight. So there's an article up there you guys can go look out. But he was touting, Swanson at the top of the order, and then just right through 5. So 1 through 5. And again, you look at the stacking tool too on Awesemo. I mean, the Braves are actually projected to be a little bit more popular than the Phillies, which surprises me and doesn't. The Braves are more stackable, I think, 1 through 5. And again, Philly, it's more just maybe you're dipping in for a batter or two. So an interesting game. Definitely wouldn't shock me if one of these teams ended up with a really big night. And they're not going to be a top 3 on stacks. So this is a good one to target both sides, really.
Yeah, that top stack tool is definitely something you want to check out. Got it right up here on the screen. Got Atlanta number 4 there in top stacks. Something you definitely want to pay attention to there. Of course, when you're looking for some free premium content up at Awesemo.com, today we've got the MLB player rankings, so you definitely want to check that out. Of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restriction. Hello to line freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless line of possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download in the App Store, play at SuperDraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. You heard Jeff talking about some of those great tools we have over at Awesemo.com, and get access to all those great Awesemo Plus tools and content for MLB DFS with the Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Pass for $15.95. This includes full access to Awesemo's leading player projections, ownership projections, and the all-new top pitchers tool and more. Get your pass today. You got to take advantage of all those tools we got out there that the number one DFS player in the world, Alex Awesemo Baker, uses daily. And so you know exactly how he is coming up with the lineups that he is coming up with. And of course, Fantasy Cruncher is a great part. You want to add that to your account as well. Then we got the Marlins and the Mets. Break up the Marlins here. Who would have seen this team with the 6-1 now on the year playing up in New York tonight?
Yeah, the Marlins are a little bit interesting. I got a couple guys written down here. I mean, Aguilar at 4,200. I think him and Anderson again. Talking about mini stacks here. I mean, going up against Wacha, who is a bit of a reverse splits pitcher, anyways. You can target these two righties against Wacha. I mean, I like it. I mean, you can go deeper as well if you want. I mean, you can take like Dickerson and Joyce or maybe even start with Villar, a guy who's batting leadoff tonight, got a little bit of power. But those were kind of my top two dudes again. And this is one of those games where just looking at projected game stacks, like you're not going to get high ownership here or anything. So. Not a game I would have thought I would have been interested in off the top, but the Miami bats here, definitely a spot of interest. And again, if I'm kind of thinking my top play, I think Anderson grades out really well here. He's a guy who's brought it early for just from a hitting perspective, and he's affordable. I mean, it's easy to fit in, so we like all that. Michael Wacha. Not really like a high strikeout pitcher anymore or anything like that. So not really afraid. I think some people might be scared away because it's just a little bit of a name, but name recognition with Wacha. But no, I like the bats here on the Miami side. I think you can even go a little bit of a full stack. Again, if I was making multiple lineups, this is a lineup where you can get good leverage in against some of the top owned stacks because they're not going to be super popular or anything.
Yeah, I know some of the names Terry was mentioning when we did a show earlier today. Villar obviously hitting at the leadoff. He mentioned about Corey Dickerson, who's hitting in a 3-hole. Overall on the Mets side, Michael Conforto, who I know is his number one Mets in his home run article that he has up. Obviously, Pete Alonso is always going to be somebody you're going to look at as well. Is there some other bats in that Mets lineup that you find intriguing?
Yeah, this is one again, the Miami pitcher, I can't even remember who it is. I mean, he's not even on the slate, so it doesn't matter. Oh no, it's Castano. I actually have him listed now. They didn't have him listed earlier today, but the Mets, Conforto obviously, coming in at pretty affordable price. Just want to make sure I don't get it wrong. Yeah, 4,200. So, it's a good matchup for him. Obviously, it's lefty. So, I'm probably maybe a little bit more interested in the right-handed bats here. I think this is a good buy low spot on Pete Alonso. Conforto or Alonso, maybe you could probably go both. But I like targeting. I like using the right-handed bats here. I know there's not a ton on the Mets, but I think Wilson Ramos down there is a really good one-off option, a pitcher or a catcher. Excuse me. Obviously you'd like him to be a little bit cheaper. But 3,200. His WOBA against lefties is like over 400 over the last little bit. It's really good. Dude's got enough power to make that salary pay off in spades, obviously. So, JD Davis is fine too. So you've got three righties spread in through the lineup. I think if you add in Conforto. Ramos, you could throw in Smith if you want, but you've got a pretty interesting stack though, going 3 through 7 right there. It's not going to cost you too much against a pitcher who is probably not going to play too much, and it's going to stretch out the pen. So realistically, this is a pretty interesting game. You're getting good salaries on a lot of these guys. Obviously Alonso is a guy we expect going to come to life at some point. You really got to like the matchup, at least to start the game, right? So, like both sides of this game for hitting. Good cheap salaries there. I really like the price on Ramos, and I think this is a spot where you can flip off of a little bit if you're just looking to get a little bit lower ownership.
By the way, a little breaking news here, and I know Alex has already put it in the chat. The Phillies-Braves game has been postponed due to rain. They will play a doubleheader on Sunday. Game 1 at 1:05 p.m. Game 2 will be 40 minutes later. So if you got any Braves or Phillies in your lineups, you got to start figuring out. I guess I got to start looking at my lineups, see who I got in there.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll have to do that on the go here. I guess no Bryce Harper for me today. But other than that, hopefully you guys will, you can redo your lineups as we go here, give you some options. I think this is a good game to, the Miami Mets game is a good game to think about. Again, not getting high ownership here on anyone or anything like that. So definitely think about this Miami Mets game. Definitely like the little 2-man stack there with the Phillies, I think, with the Marlins. With Aguilar and Anderson.
So we're now down to 11 game slate. We started the day at 13. We're now down to 11.
You have 5 at the end of the show.
Don't say that. Dude, next up we got the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. Tanner Roark going for the Blue Jays and Ryan Weber going for the Red Sox. It's been a rough start for Mr. Weber.
Yeah, it's been awful, obviously. I mean, Weber's a dude. I mean, I think most people are keen to target tonight, and I mean for good reason. I mean, I'm not even getting. I mean, obviously negative points in his first couple starts. He's been terrible. And I mean, look, the Red Sox obviously committed to just marching him back out there. So as DFS players, I mean, we're obviously going to take advantage of that. At the same time, I mean, you look, it's a great park for right-handed power, obviously. Fenway. At the same time, like. It's a great matchup for the left-handed at bats as well. So everyone is kind of in play here for Toronto. They do have a lot of right-handed power, obviously. So it's a spot where you think Vladimir Guerrero would get going. I know he's been slow to get off the hop, but I mean you just kind of look down the lineup. Everyone is kind of in play. It looks like Travis Shaw. They are going to play the match. He's going to be batting 7th. So you could even consider him. You got Hernandez down there batting 8th, which is a little strange, I guess. But, I mean, you can – I guess that just lends itself to, you can play the back end of the Toronto lineup, even if, you can go like start with Grichuk or Guerrero and go like even 5 through 8 or something like that. So Danny Jansen is in play for catcher as well. Another right-handed bat. This is grading out as one of the more popular spots here. So as much as I want to line up against Weber, I mean, this might be a spot where I just take like a shot with Guerrero or something like that and move on. I feel like the Toronto bats have been good, but I don't know if they're maybe getting a little bit too much respect here. Just from like a DFS standpoint, if they're going to be the highest owned on the slate. Obviously the matchup's good, but we have good matchups in a lot of areas. So that's kind of my feeling here. I'm lukewarm on them just because they're going to be so popular, I guess.
I mentioned this question on the strategy show, and I'll throw it to you as well. Is tonight the night we finally see JD Martinez go deep?
I don't probably not against Tanner Roark. I mean, it's not like a terrible matchup, but I mean, Roark has actually been pretty good. It could be. It's a better spot for the lefties. Like a guy like Mitch Moreland I had circled here in this game. I think that's pretty solid value at 4K. I mean, again, you can dip on the Boston side. They're definitely going to be lower owned. Benintendi leading off at 4K. It's too bad those guys weren't a little bit closer together, obviously. But you could even go full stack here. I mean. 1 through 5, it's looking pretty solid. Obviously, Bogarts has been good, and you got Moreland there hitting 5th too. You really like that. I really like that spot for him. Even Jackie Bradley Jr. down there at the bottom. I mean, left ear is his righty spot. I mean, Roark is a guy you just really want. It's just a good spot for left-handed hitters. So this is I don't know. I mean, JD Martinez. Sure, he could get off here, but it's not really the greatest matchup for him. I mean, Rourke is generally fairly good at keeping things in the park, and he's looked really good. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say this isn't the night, but at the same time, I'm not writing off the Boston bats at all either. I just would rather dip into like the value here with the left-handed hitters. Again, it's kind of a shame we don't have them a little bit more correlated. But I mean, you could go like a Bogarts, Mitch Moreland stack even. Just another mini one, and that's really good value. So,
yeah, Terry actually had mentioned about Jackie Bradley Jr. as a part of a Red Sox stack of, yes, you might have to, lose one at bat, but to team him up there with that top of the lineup.
Yeah, that makes sense too. I mean, he's in the 8th spot, and then he can get Benintendi, obviously. And if you believe this is the night for Martinez, then you can even go all the way down to 3. So, Tanner Rourke, again, he's pitched good, but it's a really good hitting ballpark, obviously. It's not like he's a bad matchup either. So, he was stretched to 90 pitches in his last time out. I mean, I have a little bit of interest in Tanner Rourke, to be honest, too, as a play. I mean, obviously, Weber we're going to have to talk about, but Rourke is a guy who, he should get a little run. So if he does start the game good, well, then, he's someone who could go deeper. And at 8,100, I mean, he's a little bit cheaper than some of those other guys we were talking about. Obviously, Boyd from Detroit. So he's in play. He's not my favorite play in this range or in 8K, but he's definitely in play just from the perspective of he should get some run tonight if he plays well.
Appreciate everyone joining us live here on the Awesemo.com YouTube channel. Be sure to smash that YouTube button. Let's get those likes over 100 here. Minnesota and the Royals. Of course, if you had that Royals stack last night, that treated you really well. Minnesota, obviously, as a team, everyone's always going to look at their offense here. Smeltzer going for the Twins. Junis going for the Royals.
Yeah, this one's interesting on both sides. I mean, another game I'm not really interested in the pitchers at all. I mean, Smeltzer is not likely to pitch deep. Junis, I mean, he's going up against Minnesota, obviously, and he's a bit of a fly ball pitcher. So, no shock here. You'll probably see some ownership on the Minnesota bats. They do have one of the highest implied team totals on the slate at over 5. It's a good matchup. I mean, pretty much across the board for Minnesota. So, just checking their lineup. I mean, I know I checked it before, but just to remind myself here. Yeah, I mean, you got Jake Cave batting, Nelson. Nelson Cruz, excuse me, is not in the lineup. I forgot Nelson Cruz's name. Nelson Cruz not in the lineup today, but Jake Cave batting 5th, 2,800. I mean, lefty matchup against Junis. You love that. But realistically, I mean, I don't really. Everyone's in play. I'm not just going to play the lefties or something from Minnesota. I don't think you have to limit yourself. I mean, Kepler through Cave is definitely an interesting stat, but you can even go one off here. Like Martin Gonzalez at 8 still has a little bit of power. I don't even mind Buxton down there as just like a pure value punt. I mean, he looked like he was getting it a little bit together. So it's a good matchup against Junis. I mean, I don't really have any interest in playing him. If you want to be contrarian, I mean, hey, I mean, if he keeps it in the park, it could absolutely pay off. But I mean, again, this is a matchup where typically, you just rubbing your hands together trying to get those Minnesota bats in, right? So, and I mean, most of these guys all of them are under 5K tonight. So probably going to be a popular stack, but for good reason here. And I'll be honest, I kind of like the other side almost a little bit better. I mean, again, obviously Smeltzer's not going to pitch long, but the lefty-righty matchup with Soler and Sal Perez, I mean, I love that. I love a little bit of value there in the middle of the order. Again, you can just play those two back-to-back if you want. Hey, you can even throw McBroom in there at 2,700, get really cheap. He's batting 4th. I mean, you can pay up for Merrifield as well. But realistically, that you could just go Soler and Perez as well. I mean, Perez, again, going to be grading out as one of the top plays at catcher. So a lot of interest from me in this game. I think this is really interesting. I think both of these, both of the lineups here are in really good spots.
By the way, I have MLB Network on here in my office, and the Cubs are flying home tonight. The weekend series has been postponed. So So that's something as we lead into Saturday and Sunday, something to think about with that series now being postponed. I know there's been a lot of comments in the chat about various pitching matchups, and we're going to get into Trevor Bauer here momentarily. Before we get to there, we got the Indians and the White Sox. Obviously, the Indians, that infield is always batters you're going to be looking at. Ramirez had a great game, last night going 3 for 4. Lindor's obviously somebody you're always going to potentially look at. But what's kind of got you interested in this one?
Yeah, the pitchers are kind of interesting here. I mean, Cervelli for Cleveland. I mean, the White Sox aren't a bad matchup here. I mean, they have a pretty high strikeout rate. So, yeah, I think Cervelli is a pitcher you could definitely get in there. I mean, on the other side, Dylan Cease, I think, makes for a better target for the Cleveland bats. He's got a pretty high walk rate. You got some really, really tough bats, obviously, in the middle of the order for Cleveland. So I don't really have too much to offer from the White Sox, except maybe like a bottom of the order stack, like or something really cheap, like obviously Danny Mendick at second base, 2,200 pops out a little bit, and Garcia there as well at 3K. So you could kind of double up on those guys if you want. That's not a horrible idea. Definitely will save you a lot of cash there. And then it's really on the other side. I mean, I think Cleveland could go a little bit overlooked here. Again, I mean, Santana, Lindor, Ramirez. Obviously, these guys are going to cost you, but it's almost like the Solar Perez thing. You can just do 2 of them, and you can go all 3. I mean, Santana's only 4,300, but you can just go with a couple of these dudes and get a mini stack and get some exposure, and you're probably going to get lower ownership than a lot of the other more popular stacks with people trying to get all the Blue Jays in or something like that. So I think this is a good spot. I mean, Cease, again, a pitcher with a little bit of control concerns going up against Cleveland, and I do kind of like Cervelli, obviously on the other side to pay up for pitching. He's over 9K, so he's a little bit more expensive than some of the other value plays we're going to talk about. And I mean, again, just going back to the Awesemo tools here. I mean, first of all, like the Cleveland stack, not projected to be top 5 or anything, and then. As far as pitching ownership goes, I mean, we're talking pretty low, I think, on Cervelli. Whoops, I'm just gonna get that number out. See what we're, projecting. I mean, projecting like under 10%. So again, I think that's probably going to be a pretty good GPP play, considering the matchup. I mean, the White Sox are good. So.
Mentioned about Trevor Bauer. I know a lot of people in the chat were talking about this. Of course, on high price tag you got to pay for him tonight, going up against the Brewers. Lauer going up on the mound for the Brew Crew. In terms of, and obviously in terms of the matchup here, obviously Trevor Bauer. Obviously that's going to be what people really want to know about. Is do you like the price tag paying up for him in this spot?
I mean, I like the spot from a top raw points perspective. He is easily like grades out as number 1. I mean, I say that like easily as in like it's pretty clear as day. So I mean, the other thing is like he's probably not even going to be the most highly owned pitcher on the slate. It's just fitting him in means you're going to have to, you're not going to be able to pay up for all the big bats. But I feel like on the slate, like we don't have Coors. There's multiple good spots to go to. I do feel like this is too good a matchup to kind of just ignore as well. I mean, I know I've already talked up a couple other pitchers I like a little bit, but none of them have the upside that Bauer does. And he's already been over 100 pitches a couple times in both starts. The Brewers have an awful K rate against right-handed pitching. Like this is really good, right? So we can talk about guys like Boyd or Kikuchi or however you pronounce his name later in the show, but Bauer is it as far as pitching goes. So I do kind of like paying up. I feel like again you're going to be able to find enough value on the slate you should be able to fit him in Again, because he's just projecting out from points perspective as like the clear top play. So.
Yeah, looking at our ownership projections on DraftKings, we got Trevor at 31%.
Yeah, so I mean it's chalky, but it's not overly chalky. Obviously, he's going to be the top play. Whenever you get a clear top player like that, he's going to be owned. But you can mix and match him. I mean, there's a lot of options. Maybe not. You can just eat the chalk and go with both the top plays. Obviously, go with the 5K pitcher as well. But I really do feel like Bauer is a player who we should probably get some exposure to. Again, just the strikeout potential against the Brew Crew, who really haven't been that great anyways. I mean, from a bats perspective, Yelich is under 5K. I guess again, if you're not playing Bauer, you definitely could consider Yelich tonight. But other than that, I mean, they got a low run total. Nothing I'm really considering. This isn't even a spot that I'd be that concerned to get like hedging against or anything like that. Or trying to get leverage against by stacking the Brewers. I mean, you can do that, but if you're going to do that, probably do it against with the Colorado bats hedging against a popular pitcher. Not here. Yelich the only one on the Brewers. I feel like on the Reds, there's a lot more to like a little bit. I mean, Castellanos and Suarez as far as right-handed bats, those two definitely stick out. Oh, and the Reds don't have their lineup out yet, so.
I got here on the MLB app. Castellanos.
It is out. Yeah, so Castellanos second, Suarez third. Again, another one of those 4K stacks I really like. I mean, Cincinnati, going up against Lauer, who I didn't even talk about. I mean, he's a pretty easy fade. What's he going to throw, like 70 pitches? I mean, it's a good spot for the right-hand bat. So, you got Senzel leading off. You can even go the top 3 if you want. Or top 4. I mean, Davidson there at 2,400. But realistically, like Castellanos and Suarez are the two dudes there that you really want to get in.
I mentioned this earlier today. Christian Yelich, at some point, he's going to have a big game. There's been so much made this week about how he's played the first week and a half of the season of the struggles that he's had, which you just know. I mean, if you're going to rely on history, he's going to turn this thing around. But yeah, it's I'm definitely on the Trevor Bauer aspect. I know we had a couple of mentions in the comments about this and our next matchup of the Angels and the Rangers could Griffin Canning be a little chalky?
I mean, I think I was looking him up right before the show, and I want to say it's projecting a little bit higher than I thought. So, yeah, I think the answer is yes. Like you're going to get a little bit of chalk with him. I'm okay with it, though, to be honest. Again, no, I think that's a good question, and it's something to consider. But we're kind of at a lack of options here, right? So you're probably smart to eat at least a little bit of chalk on the slate at pitching. I mean, you can go to the Dodgers as well, but you're paying more of a premium there. You could again. I brought up Velasquez, who's actually projecting with a little bit of ownership. I guess he could consider Waka at under 8K, but there's just not that many good pivots here, and I think you're getting Griffin Canning in a pretty good spot. Again, he's like a really solid K rate. He should be stretched out a little bit in the spot. It's a good ballpark as well. It seems to be a lot more pitcher friendly. So I'm okay eating the Griff Canning chalk here. But you should expect a little bit of ownership to answer the question.
Is there anything on the Rangers bats that you think should be drawing our interest?
God, and I mean, this is the thing. Not really, right? I mean, look, Gallo is obviously always someone you could build around, but it's not really a spot. I mean, to build around him, you still have to pay up for Chu at 4K or Calhoun. So, is Gallo out tonight?
Gallo is not in the lineup.
Well, there you go. Okay, I mean, we don't even have to talk about Joey Gallo, and I wouldn't even talk about this game. This is just an easy avoid for me. Then, I mean, I really have no interest in the Rangers, which is probably why, part of the reason why I like Canning so much, obviously. But again, it is a good spot for him. I mean, he's flashed with a good K rate lately. It's a good ballpark, like I mentioned, and with Gallo out, then there you go. So.
We'll move on to the Astros and the A's. Zach Greinke going for the Astros. Chris Bassett going for the A's in this one. Obviously Zach Greinke, you got a high salary right underneath Trevor Bauer here. And, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Greinke is not really interested in him at this price. I mean, K rate is down, obviously a little bit off his career bests, and going up against the A's, just a team that doesn't strike out very much. So, I mean, even with his, I'm actually a little bit surprised his ownership is projecting, like almost over 10% here, to be honest. It's just, I feel like Bauer's such a better option. And then we do have like some viable pitchers in the 8K range. So, the only kind of argument here for Greinke is, just that he's going to be lower owned, which I guess, obviously does carry some merit. But I'm not really interested in it at all. Again, the A's are just a terrible matchup. Kind of a little bit more interested in Bassett on the other side, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's projecting with like no ownership, but he does have some. I mean, like he's flashed some pretty good K rate. I mean, in the little we've seen of him. So again, it's not like the greatest player or anything like that, obviously, but I'm a little surprised he's not getting at least like a little bit of love here. So definitely a player I could get behind for GPPs.
Yeah, set .93 ERA on the season, struck out 7 5 2/3 in his last time out, which was a win against the Mariners. Looking at the bats for the A's, obviously Matt Olson, the left-handed power bat there, is something that's he's always going to draw interest. Besides him, is there something else in that lineup?
So this is a game I'm definitely not that big on the bats. I mean, and just to go back to Bassett a bit, I mean, obviously, look, like we're talking about something that might be unsustainable, but no reason why it can't be sustained for like one more game, just in terms of his like K rate, like K to walk rate here. So, the Angels, obviously a team that don't strike out a ton as well. So it's not like the Astros, a team that don't strike out a ton, and they're a tough matchup. So I guess I can understand, the low sentiment on them. But again, we're projecting here, like the Astros have a really low implied team total, one of the lowest you'll ever see. So, Vegas kind of agrees with me, I think. I mean, they don't really think it's a good spot for the Astros either. I'm not super interested in any of their bats. I mean, the guys are a little bit down, I guess, in terms of price. I think the only one I'm really interested in is just, again, going with the lefty-righty matchup, Michael Brantley hitting fourth tonight, 4,500. I'm okay with that. I'd be okay paying up for that. I mean, I've mentioned like 2 or 3 other spots with players around this price range. I'd probably rather just stack, but Brantley's fine. I mean, definitely don't mind playing like the matchup there. And then on the other side, I mean, you mentioned Olson. That would be the player I'd want as well, but again, going up against Greinke, who, I mean, okay, maybe he's not worth 10.2K, but maybe doesn't strike out that much, but he's still a quality pitcher. It's not really a place I need to attack on this slate. But Olson, again, another one of those 4K range guys, good lefty righty versus matchup, and Olson's been good lately. So those are pretty much my 2 favorite bats here, but I'm not really interested in anything for stacking or anything like that.
Then we got the D-backs and the pods. Luke Weaver going for the D-backs. Zach Davies going for the pods.
Yeah, this one's interesting. I mean, you've got, Weaver, who it carries a little bit of interest, I guess. I mean, I'm not super high on him, but he's been okay as well as I look for my notes on this game. Here we go. Yeah, I mean, 8K. Good. He's more of a. He's very similar to Bassett in a way. I mean, good K rate, but he's been more wild. He hasn't been as good, right? And now he's going up against a Padres team who Again, they're way more patient at the plate this year. So probably better places. Again, if you're talking like Bissett versus Weaver, I would rather take a shot with Bissett. I feel like I am kind of interested in the Arizona bats a little bit, though. I mean, Zach Davies, not a good K rate. Like he doesn't strike out a ton. I mean, I like the left-handed bats here a little bit. You can go with Marte Calhoun at the top there. You could target like Peralta down at the bottom. He's under 4K. You could even do like a little mini stack there down to Lamb 6 through 8. But there's a little bit of interest. I think that it's a good contrarian spot. Maybe just pay up for Marte at the top or something like that. And then, on the other side, I mean, there's some interest. I mean, you got Cronenworth there, left-handed, 2,700. I think that's a solid value. The Padres are not my favorite stack, but I mean, they're obviously in play. I mean, you can pay up for Tatis here if you want, but again, there's a couple other games we haven't talked about, and some of those guys. Although maybe with now that we're losing like Bryce Harper and stuff like that, this spot does become a little bit more interesting because you can pay up for Tatis. It's not that bad a matchup. Again, Weaver a little bit wild, so maybe I shouldn't be writing the Padres off as much as I was before, but. Yeah, it's an interesting game. It's again, I don't think it's going to garner like a ton of ownership either. So,
of course, this is MLB Live Before Lock. Of course, the game's starting here about another 15 minutes. So, of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions. Hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10 as $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Now, we at Awesemo are excited to bring you our inaugural season-long fantasy football and best ball draft kit. Using the same tools that have helped make Alex Awesemo Baker the #1 daily fantasy sports player, we've compiled a package that will revolutionize the way you prepare for fantasy football drafts. For $29.95, our draft kit includes everything you need to prep, including rankings, projections, sleeper tools, loads of content from our experts, and the Draft Wingman, which will update team projections in real time based on who has already been drafted. As an added bonus, new FFPC members get a $35 credit when they sign up for an Awesemo Draft Kit, which is basically makes it free. Don't miss this one. Dominate your fantasy and best ball leagues today. We got you mentioned about the $5,000 pitcher. We finally made it to our spot there with the Mariners. I know Adam had mentioned to me last night on the Early Bird podcast. We talked about it on the strategy show. Obviously, he is going to be chalky. I know we have him right behind Trevor Bauer as the top ownership in terms of pitching.
Yeah, you see, and you tell me if I'm saying this right, Kikuchi, right?
Sure.
I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm the worst with pronunciation. So, 5K, obviously, though. I mean, he's projecting out as the bigger chalk for this slate. No shock to anyone. It's an interesting spot. I mean, for a couple of reasons. I mean, look, he's, as a left-handed pitcher, you going into a game with like Arenado and Trevor Story. I mean, a couple big right-handed bats here. I like getting exposure to those guys in lineups going up against them, just because if they go off and he allows a ton of runs and gets beaten up, then I mean it's a great spot in GPP. So getting exposure to that Colorado stack, I definitely like that idea. Just from a GPP perspective, I'm not sure if we have lineups out for. Oh yeah, looks like we do. So again, Story, Arenado, and then I mean Matt Kemp as well, 3,300. Mm-hmm. So you can pretty much go like 2 through 5 there. And get a nice little stack as a way to counteract the chalk. But at the same time, I mean, like, there's a reason why people like him, and I do get it. I mean, he's obviously been like a little bit wild, but he's got a really good K rate. Striking out 9 players in his last outing through 6 innings. I mean, that's probably not sustainable, but at the same time, the potential's there. And at 5K, I mean, what the heck not? I mean, like it's just so little. You get 5Ks from this guy, you're gonna be in a pretty good spot. So obviously see the potential, and it's probably the most interesting spot. It's really going to be the make or break spot on this slate. I mean, there's no super uber owned stack. There's no Coors Field or anything. So this is pretty much going to be. I mean, the Rockies are still involved in it, but I still kind of like Story, and I still kind of like Nolan for the I was going to call them the Avalanche, the Rockies.
Yeah, you mentioned about Yusei in his last start against the A's, 6 scoreless innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. And I think it's the most interesting stat. 20 swing and misses in his 89 pitches.
Yeah, again, people are rightfully excited about the numbers, right? And I'm not trying to downplay it or anything, especially for cash game purposes. I'd want exposure to it. Again, it's just a leverage thing. Maybe you going a little bit underweight on the field or something, or even just going overweight. It might even be the play here because, I mean, it's still a good spot. I mean, you got some left-handed bats, obviously, for him to hopefully, pitch through in Colorado. But, man, yeah, I mean, it's still risky with going up against a couple right-handed power hitters. So, and then the Seattle side, I mean, the other thing you could do is play the Colorado pitcher. I mean, there's a little bit of GPP upside here with Senzatella. I mean, 5,800. So you could go that route as well. There's different ways to go about it, but realistically, the Seattle bats aren't in a bad spot. I mean, this is kind of a spot where I don't know if I'd stack, but going with like Kyle Seager at 48, maybe just again. Probably a mini stack for Seattle exposure for me, but it's going to be an interesting game. This is probably going to decide a lot of the slate, how this one turns out. So being on both ends or having a little bit of exposure to both ends, with the Colorado bats and the Seattle pitching, probably not the worst idea.
One more game we haven't mentioned yet. That's the Giants and the Dodgers. Dodgers the biggest favorite tonight on the slate, overwhelming favorite there. I guess talk about the stack first on the Dodger side of is there a particular stack in this lineup that interests you?
Yeah, this is probably this is my favorite spot. I mean, going up against Samardzija. Again, I mean, I'm just going to update our stack tool here and see if they're projecting. But I mean, the Dodgers being not in the top 3 stacks. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. No, it looks like they are in the top 3 owned stacks, which is fine. I'm fine that. I'm fine eating some Dodgers chalk here. I really feel like they should be the heading away. Here going up against a weaker right-handed pitcher like Samardzija, who doesn't really strike out anyone much anymore. I mean, Jock Peterson leading off obviously was highly rated in the home run article today. And then you obviously got Bellinger, Seager lifted. I mean, I like 1 through 5 or 1 through 6 really, with Muncy batting 6th there. So you can pick and choose. Maybe you leave Betts out just because he's so expensive. But I absolutely love the stack. This is one I'd want more exposure to than normal. People might be mentioning in the chat, they just talk about stats or stack exposure. So that's fine. I mean, this is one I would want overexposure on, right? I mean, just talking about it from that perspective. So really like this spot. You can just roster like the lefty power bats as well. But if you can fit these guys in, I mean, this is where the value pitching is going to come into effect today, because the people who are obviously paying down for pitching, they're going to be paying up for the Dodgers. I mean, this is one of the spots where, if the value pitchers hold and this spot goes off, I mean, you're going to see a lot of, Seattle 5K pitching, Dodgers, 4K, 5K left-handed power bats. So.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Turner. I mean, I think that's potentially someone to look at as could have a little ownership. Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean, this isn't a spot where you just play the lefties for sure.
Justin Turner, and not even like that bad hitting, obviously right versus right. So it's one of those spots where you should just feel like, it's just a matter of who you can fit in salary wise and who you want to go with. But, the bigger stack exposure here for sure. Justin Turner, 4,700. Yeah, you're probably, that's a guy who will get your ownership level down in the stacks if you go with him, I feel like. So something to think about there as well. Maybe you leave, I really like Jock Peterson, but maybe you leave him out, you start at Bellinger and then go through like 7 or something. So lots of ways to do it. Will Smith at catcher, a little expensive, but I do like that as well. You could start at the bottom of the order. You could go like 9 through 3. He's a better hitting catcher than the other dude they have, whose name I can't remember, but that's good that he's in there. So if he's in there, I think I'm looking at the confirmed lineup. If he is, anyways, he's playable. So I like the stack is basically the be all end of it. I basically have no one to even talk about on the San Francisco side. Urias as a pitcher, definitely viable as well. His only issue is, it doesn't have like the highest K rate. And the other thing is we're not quite sure how far he's going to get stretched out. So he's still definitely in play though. He's the biggest favorite. Obviously, I'm just talking up the Dodgers. So definitely, I would prefer him over Zach Greinke tonight.
As we're coming up here on lock, obviously everyone wants to know, stacks that, they should be looking at, maybe the stacks that someone's not talking about. Is there maybe a little bit of an under the radar stack, in terms of this slate?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that for the last little bit here, because we talked about Miami a little bit. I definitely like that idea. I think going 1 through 5 there, just the way it shapes up, I don't think you'll get, a ton of exposure. So definitely liking, the top hitters there. Trying to look for just another one of more value spots there. Cincinnati is probably, everyone's playing Bauer, but, is everyone going to stat load up on their bats? Mm-hmm. So that's something to think about. And then, I kind of come back to Arizona here if you really want to get a little bit nuts. It's a good matchup, and they have quite a few left-handed bats in there tonight. So again, you could play top or sort of mid bottom of the order there. I think that is something that's going to get a little bit underlooked. And again, like guys like Peralta, Calhoun, these guys can go off on a right-handed pitcher like Zach Davies just for one night. So give a little bit of credit to Arizona as well. As just, again, we're talking obviously lower owned plays. You don't need like a ton of lineups to get exposure to those guys, but those would be a couple that popped out to me.
Obviously, you mentioned about Detroit. Pittsburgh's not exactly a game you're going to have a ton of shares on. Is there another game that you look at and say, man, just, it's kind of a game I'm just not too interested in?
Most games I kind of like one side or the other. It's probably Houston, Oakland for bats, for sure. It's a little bit of a tougher pitching matchup for both teams. Again, the Houston team told you, it's just not big, and they're playing in a bad ballpark. The A's don't strike out that much, but Greinke's, one of the top pitchers on this slate. So realistically, that was kind of a game. I just don't have much written down for. That one, and Detroit, Pittsburgh. At least, and the thing about Detroit, Pittsburgh is at least there's a couple really cheap players you can go to there. So in a way, I almost like targeting that more than the Houston one. But most games have at least a couple players that I feel like are very viable, because there's not a ton of elite pitching on the slate. But you go back to the ballpark issues or just dynamics with Pittsburgh and Oakland, and those really kind of lead those games. They just looks like overpriced hitters. So
I know earlier on the chat, people were kind of throwing numbers out of what Trevor Bauer could get. Number 25 was out there, 30 was out there. Obviously, what's kind of, as you think about where he could end up here tonight.
I don't think he's going to be super. This is just my take, obviously. 25, I wouldn't be shocked if he came in under 30. I'll throw that out there. I know we haven't projected Last I checked, might have been 28-30 around there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So I feel like he might be a little bit lower. Yeah, he's actually projected a little bit higher just as we get into locks. So I feel like he might be just a touch lower, just because everyone is again just trying to fit in some more higher priced bats, which is usually what happens. And there's a couple dudes like Canning we talked about. Maybe people are going to take a shot with Bissett or something like that, and Boyd. So, and obviously everyone's playing the Seattle pitchers. So I feel like he might be just a touch lower owned.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be high ownership up there. Of course, Jeff, man, it's always great to be here on a Friday afternoon talking MLB with you. Of course, as always, man, let everyone know anything follow you out on social media, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at the Fantasy Grind, and obviously got a ton of weekly golf stuff going on up there, but doing the Friday shows with for MLB for Jason. So make sure you smash the like on your way out, folks, for us, and subscribe to the Awesemo channel. Be great.
Of course. And of course, we'll have a ton of coverage over here at Awesemo.com tomorrow. Be sure to check out all the coverage, all the sports that we have: MLB, NBA, PGA, NASCAR, MMA. Everything's all over there. Awesemo.com. Go to awesemo.com/join to sign up for a premium membership now. So that is going to wrap it up for MLB Live Before Lock for here on Friday, August the 7th.